It's World Poetry Day, people. Today I have with me on studio four very important personalities. On my right I have Michael Oga, who is a poet enthusiast, he's a performance poet and a critic. I also have with me Oliver Yokase, who is a social critic, a playwright, and also a performer. And on my left, I have Debbie. Debbie is a poet, and yes, she's also a performance poet. I have the country director, Nigeria, Splendors of Dawn Poetry Foundation, in person of Odo Diego Okonyedo. So I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so it's World Poetry Day. Michael, what does the World Poetry Day means to you?
World Poetry Day, it's a day to celebrate words, how letters help transform the society. Yeah, that's what it is to me.
Okay.
Yeah, how words can transform society.
How words can transform society. Oliver, of recent we've been grappling with the COVID-19, and then we have tomorrow being a World Water Day, and coincidentally, water is very essential for us at this very critical time. And then we have people, being told to, wash your hands as many times as possible. How do you think poetry can further help to sensitize the society about COVID-19?
The coronavirus, named COVID-19, no doubt has created a lot of panic, caused a lot of disruption and deaths. In Nigeria, we know we've recorded a 12th death as of 2 days ago. It's a serious issue, no doubt. And we know from World Health Organization, we know from the experts that hygiene is the best method of keeping yourself uninfected by COVID-19. And that's where water comes in critically. In trying to wash your hands and stay safe, you need access to water, and you need access to clean water. You wouldn't use dirty water to wash your hands. And then in fighting COVID-19, you pick up another disease. So it's not just the importance of having water available, especially water, decent water coming out from the tap, is very important. I dare say that the community who don't have water or access to clean water, their problem is doubled. Because right now they'll be dealing with COVID-19 and the basic, simple steps that we've been advised to do. We can't do it because there's no water, and that's pathetic. Yes.
Oh, yeah, water is essential. So, Debbie, as a poet, do you think that poets are doing enough in terms of sensitizing the society using poetry as a tool, most especially now that COVID-19 is on the rise? Do you think poets are doing enough?
Well, at the moment, I don't think they are doing enough just yet. Because most of what you see or the information you find online are informations that are not in any way related to poetry. You don't see poems or literature or whatever online as much as you see fake information. So if I can say that writers will be doing enough, if we see a level of those arts or pieces or poems or whatever online than we see of the fake news, then I can begin to say that, okay, we are getting close.
Yeah, we're getting close. So, Mr. Odo, you are the country director for Splendors of Dawn Poetry Foundation, and of course, you're also one of the key figures of the World Poetry Movement. This is a very critical issue we're having in our hands now, and like Debbie rightly said, poets are not doing enough. What do you think? What medium do you think we can further use poetry as a tool to sensitizing the community, most especially because Oliver just also explained to us that the community are more at risk in terms of getting accessible clean water, to not to talk more of measures or steps to take in eradicating or trying to ensure safety of COVID-19?
I think poetry is a genre, and then what we're trying to do in Splendors is to now go into multiplicity of formats. So poets mostly have forgotten the original basis of poetry, which is oral. And they went more for the written forms of poetry, and that's because of the ways we have taught poetry, the written poetry in schools became boring. And this also tells us why the rise of performance poetry now has, is intriguing Nigerians. And we are getting involved in all the different formats: video, podcasting, audiobooks. Poets first of all have to get involved in those different formats, just beyond just the pages of books. That's one area we know if we get involved in, then we're getting to make poetry more appealing again. And then when people enjoy poetry in that form, you can pass messages that can change society. So about COVID-19, about cholera, about diarrhea, and different social issues that we can get involved in. So I think the poets might not be doing enough, but also because there aren't many organizations thinking in terms of the diverse formats that we can put poetry into.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, Michael, there's this whole idea that community theater is dying, and I know for a fact that it's one platform that poets can actually also use to, disseminate some of these messages. Do you think bringing back the community theater will do us any good with respect to the COVID-19, with respect to the rainy season that's coming? We also have the flood. So do you think that poets can begin to raise that red flag now to say, aside the fact that we're having this COVID-19, can we also begin to look at the issue of flooding that's coming? How can we evacuate? So do you think community theater can do anything in this regard?
To begin with, I remember as a child growing up in Lagos, my father would take I and my brothers to see plays in the theater, the famous Lagos theater.
I thought I was a good man.
Yeah, he was a very good man. Yeah, so I grew up basically surrounded by literature. Now, as regards what poets can do to help sensitize the public about the different societal, should I say ails, or should I say the different societal, plagues, right? I don't think that there's much poets can do. And there isn't much poets can do because of the way societies views poets. Like I was telling a friend of mine before the camera came on, that I was reading a novel titled Normal People by Sally Rooney. And in that novel, she was talking about how literature has become an elitist affair. It has become an affair that only the rich or the upper class indulge in. And I have to agree with Sally Rooney. And especially when you look at Nigeria and know that there's a higher level of illiteracy as compared to literates, right? The literate level is higher than the literate level. Now, the majority of the people who indulge in reading to begin with are the literates, right? Yeah. So, in what shape or form can you then sensitize the public using literature? First and foremost, the literacy level has to go up, meaning that we have to have free education, right? Now, I know that's not feasible because the economy already is suffering, right? Institutions need to make money. But I believe that if the literacy level goes up, right, people will have more respect and perhaps will be more sensitized by the power of literature, right? There will be a larger audience, right, that will be susceptible to what literature can do. And I was also telling this friend before the camera came on that I read Flashes of Light by Ibn al-Maktoum. Ibn al-Maktoum is currently, would I say the king or is he the president of Dubai? right? And he's also a poet. Flashes of Light was a collection of his poems. And then I read My Vision, and he said something in My Vision. He said when he set out to transform, or rather when they set out to transform Dubai, they told themselves, okay, we need to gather the religious leaders. First and foremost, we know that we are an Islamic nation. We know that Islam is a very conservative religion, right? But what is going to be our major source of income? It has to be what? Tourism. Why? Because Dubai is already a desert country, right? So the first thing they did was to go into buying their own aeroplanes, because before they were using British Airways and the likes. The next thing they did was, in order to transform the landscape, right, they reduced the cost of land, right, and invited, foreigners to come buy land, to come set up there, right, and thereby employing their own citizens. Then the next thing they did, or rather what the king, or should I say the president did, was to inform these religious leaders that as these Westerners are coming into our country, they are going to come in with their Western ideals, right? But you must speak to our people and tell them that if they want to be receiving, for lack of a better word, salary, free salary every month, right?
Okay.
They should allow these Westerners who would walk on the beach wearing bikinis and stuff, right? You allow them wander around and everything. And today we know that the story behind Dubai has greatly transformed. So I think that for poetry, or for performance art in theaters to have that much effect in society, literacy level has to go up. And for literacy level to go up, schools must be open or must be at an affordable cost.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, but I would ask a question. I mean, my regular question when we talk about literacy level is, are we talking about just literacy in English? Because when we...
I was going to that.
Okay.
I was going to that because, like, Oliver said something which I think is very critical. The people at the community level, they do not even have what it takes to understand that they need to wash their hand. It's as simple as that. Their literacy level is so poor to that aspect that you need to think through the medium which you need to sensitize them about. So I think once it comes to literacy level, are you referring to like just the English, or are you talking about using the languages that is dear to them to further sensitize them or to further school them about certain things? China, for example, we know that they are where they are today because they taught through the Chinese medium. Yeah, so that's what he was asking when he talked about the medium of use. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes, I will be honest. When I was stating my scenario, I was looking at it more from the English perspective. But now that you've brought this up, yes, okay. I think that people should be communicated in the language in which they understand. I think that literacy doesn't necessarily have to do with literacy doesn't have to do with English, or shouldn't be said to be conveyed, right, using English as the best medium. They should be spoken to in a language that they understand. Okay. But I was also speaking to this same friend of mine before the camera came on, that because Nigeria is broken down into different subsects and ethnicities and religions, right? It's hard for there to be cohesiveness. And when you look at the story of from third world to first world, the Singaporean story, did you read it? Lee Kuan Yew. You saw what he did when he realized that some parts were Mandarin speaking, some parts were English speaking. So what did he do? Remember how he called the Mandarin speaking lecturers and said, you have to go to the English speaking schools to learn how to speak English, right? To create this cohesiveness, right? So that everybody can basically speak in a central language in which everyone can be understood, right? So I still encourage that even as we go out there to speak to people or to sensitize them through this medium, the government, on the other hand, should work towards making better our educational system. And this educational system sincerely has to be through the medium of English. Because in any way, we were even colonized using that, that language.
Okay.
But while we wait for the government, I'm always very quick to deflect attention from the government.
Yeah.
So like at Splendors, can we have World Poetry Day in some languages? can we do, as poets, can we write poetry in the languages that are either our mother tongue or something? Because if we don't even have enough literary production in those languages, then what does educational system leverage to teach, say, literature? It's going to need to leverage creative works in those languages. So it shouldn't be the other way around. It shouldn't be until government says. It should be that we as poets should stop being elitists. Now I'm bringing it back to us. That it's we who are trying to speak to an audience that is not even the majority. The majority, even in Abuja, are in Nyanya, Suleja, blah, 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 and these people may not even speak in the languages we are talking about. So, can we challenge ourselves on World Poetry Day as poets? That from now on, we should produce, say, 50% of whatever we're doing in our first languages, probably, if English is not our first. But, if you are Tiv, can you commit to writing up to 50% of what you do in Tiv? Or if you understand Igbo more, even if you are not Igbo, but you grew up, you're Yoruba, but you grew up in Igbo land, you write in Igbo because you know that's your audience. It's when we have a large body of works that the educational system leverages those works to teach. So I would not want to first go to the government. I would say let's commit to.
Yeah, so
okay. I have a question.
Okay.
The new generation, we seem to have a problem of not knowing our languages.
Yes.
So for people who are literature inclined and don't know their languages, how can they make impact in those languages, as you have said?
Which are your languages? Because for me, I know that you don't gist with your friend in proper English. What's that language? So when JP writes a poem, he gets reason, he wrote and performed it in the language it sounds like communicating with a friend, conversational. So he's not in that realm of say Queen's English, not Shakespearean. He is talking to an audience that is not that audience that this educational system would have used. I don't know if you get my point.
Okay,
so
let me also bring back our attention to the institutions that we have. I know most institutions now do have like a radio stations and what have you, so they do it in terms of podcasting. Now I am coming back to you because you're more or less a media person. Is there a way World Poetry Movement in partnership with Splendors can say, oh, we want to go to some of these schools because they have a larger target audience who can also help us to, step down some of these things that we're advocating, to say we want to run like a podcast every 2 weeks or every month, or we have a panel discussions with them just like we have it now. Because I think it helps to bring about inclusiveness, participation, and all of that. Is it something that you're willing to try as an organization, for example?
Yeah, sounds like a very wonderful idea because just like you said, for me in the media, I've come to appreciate that there's no homogeneous audience.
Oh, yeah.
There are different pockets of audiences. And so that university audience, the youthful audience, is one that it would be nice to experiment how we can engage with the individual communities separately. That would be something we'll explore.
Okay, Oliver, do you think the Ministry of Water Resources is doing enough with respect to this whole COVID-19 or with respect to hygiene in the generic term?
I would say to a large extent, yeah.
Okay.
Let me explain. You see, the problem I've been involved with the WASH project for some years. We actually run an NGO where we we have a group of artists who contribute, who put boreholes in communities. We've done that for a few communities.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
We've done some projects. We've worked with water aids, a couple of, and I can tell you this to a large extent, as that I'll probably throw some numbers. As that, let's say 2016, 2017, we had about 97,000 children dying every year for lack of water. As of today, it's about 60,000 children every year.
In Nigeria?
Yes. So
it's worse than COVID-19.
Wow. Yes. No.
Yeah,
I don't want to throw the figures out there, but the figure is scary. But I'm saying between 97,000 children dying annually to now 60,000 children dying annually in the space of 2016 to 2020. You can't deny that there's been a lot of improvement. However, it's not just about water. Water has other. It's a compound issue. You have sanitation. That's why it's water, sanitation, hygiene.
Yeah.
The WASH project. So you still have about 119 million people still struggling with hygiene in the country. So hygiene is a bigger problem than what currently. However, with COVID-19, the fact still remains: washing of hands is critical to maintaining hygiene, and that's because the virus itself, you get infected through the openings, your natural opening, your eyes, your mouth. If you have an injury, your hands are your primary ways you contact things, and if you contact the virus, you understand, and you touch your face through your openings, it gets in, and that's where washing of hands becomes very important. Also, if you where I work in a scientific organization, so that's why I'm quite informed about this. You know, this disease stays on the surface sometime for 9 days on certain surfaces, and disease is mutating. Right now, it can stay in the air for like 3 hours. So now you're dealing with a disease that can survive outside of its host for 9 days on the surface. What are you going to use to clean that surface? If you do not have disinfectants, you're going to use water. So water plays such a critical role in fighting COVID-19. You have to, think about it. You may not have the money to buy the masks, but you can wash your face under running water. You can wash your hands under running water. In fact, the reason why they say you should use what they call this what we're using, sanitizer, is because of the absence of water. If you have water all the time with soap with soap, running water all the time, you don't need the sanitizers. The sanitizers, you use them in the absence of water, and it's because water creates it's central to dealing with COVID-19. Okay. And so what the poets can do, really, I'm part of the National EOC Risk Communication for COVID-19, working as put together by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention. I can tell you that every single person can play a role. Poets are not left out. The point of the matter is, you don't need to reach 100 million people at a time. You can reach 10. You could reach 5, 20. And most of the time, that's where poets kind of miss it, because they always think of a big crowd. Poetry was never really designed for the big crowd. It was communication within people that can receive what you are saying. So if you're a poet and within your community, within your friends, you could, and like he said, putting it down on paper requires reading. Mm-hmm. You could communicate your poetry through, and then there was this talk we had here about universities and institutions. All of that has been neutralized with the emergence of the internet. The internet is where everybody converges. You understand? Diverse audiences converge. My wife, for instance, has 5,000 friends. You understand? And another 5,000 waiting to add on Facebook. You, with a simple poem that that connects to issues that bother people. You can connect to a lot of people. And I know the money doesn't come into the pocket, I know that, but you have a role to play in COVID-19. Not so many people know the importance of water, connecting water to COVID-19. A poet can make that connection, and that's what gives you relevance and importance.
All right, and that is what gives us relevance and importance. So on this note, I'd like to thank my panelists. Michael, thanks for coming. Ayokase, so thank you. Debbie, I'm glad it's so wonderful having you around. And although we'd like to see more proactiveness from Splendors of Dawn, not just for World Poetry Day now, but I think this panel needs a continuity because we would love to further this conversation, but because of time, I think we'll have to reschedule for some other time when we come back to converge here to see how impactful some of these our deliberations have been put into action. On that note, happy World Poetry Day.